now here I am, like in about 40 weeks, there's going to be a life I have to take care of. So I internalized that stress fully. Um, at that time, my mom was still grieving. And so there was no, again, support for me to say, who do I reach out to? So, amongst friends, there was only one who was a gynecologist who was pregnant. And she had already had her baby. And she says, you're going to be okay. She gives me this gigantic list of things. She's like, this is all that you need to buy for the baby. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all this? Really?
It's been so long since
I
well, I think it's
know.
the first time we're actually seeing each other after, I don't know what, like 20 plus years, right?
1998, right?
That's right. And
No, 2000. Sorry, because we graduated in 2000.
I mean, I moved here in 2008. Similar to you, I went through like a really awful like culture shock. Like I didn't know
Hmm.
it was like I had gone to Australia before coming to the US, and I
Hmm.
but that there I had permission to like come back to Dubai every time I felt homesick. So I was only there for like 18 months, but I traveled to Dubai like 5 times in those 18 months.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then I was like I knew that, you know what, I don't think I can live in another country. I need to be around the people that I know and who know me well.
Yeah.
So when I moved to the US, it was almost like that permission that I had to keep coming back to Dubai was like not there anymore. Right? Because there's like distance and you're newly married and you're like, you don't know what to
Hmm.
do and everything around you is new. You don't know anybody. Um, and then, of course, like I got pregnant like soon after, right?
Hmm.
And I know you had your struggles as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, how did you, like, what's your story?
Um, so like I said, right, I moved here in 2001. I met my husband in 2005. I graduated and I moved to Florida. So I studied in Georgia.
Okay.
So I had figured out life in the US on my own. Like my dad, mom didn't come to drop me, nothing. I just came alone. I found an apartment on my own, everything. I just had to do everything on my own. There was no help from anyone. Like, hey, this is what you should look at. This is what you should do. You as students who are finally kind of moving away have these resources, some resources
Mhm.
online. And so anyway, so I finally moved and started a new life, right? I found a roommate. I drove down to Florida to meet with her. And it was a 7.5 hour drive I did alone. Came back another 7.5 hours the same day, packed up my stuff, and I said, I'm ready to move next month. Again, packed up my stuff, went and dropped everything off. Now I started my life there.
Mhm.
And I think shortly, I would say about 6 or 7 months after I met my husband, and we just hit it off. And he was born and raised in Michigan, so for him, he's it's nothing new or what my experiences were. He has no clue, right? Because it's all already done for him, and it's easy for him. But for me, I kept struggling. Then there was a guilt factor that my dad was like, no, you need to come back. I'm giving you 1 year and whatnot. Added to that, you have the stress of whether or not you're going to make it. And
Hmm.
then you were like, okay, there's H1 visa issues and all that stuff. So all that stress together, I just kept going. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Finally, whatever, stars aligned, universe aligned. I decided that Vishnu and I, are, I think this is something serious. And so, yeah, we got married in 2008, but we had kids very quickly after that. And I wouldn't say very quickly in the sense, I wish we had 5, 6 years before we had children. We had kids in the year 2010, which means 2008, I got married, and 2010, I had my first kid. And in between, I lost my dad.
Hmm.
And that was like, I think I couldn't deal with it. That was my depression moment. When I was like, wait, he was there for all my questions. Who
Yeah.
now? And by then, my brothers and all, we were kind of spread out, right? My one brother was in Australia. he he left everything and came back to Dubai because my mom and my brother were struggling to take care of my dad. I couldn't go as often because again I'm just starting out in my career and a new job, and now I'm finally after 4 years of struggle, it's like I'm getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm finally seeing the value that my dad put in of all that money in my in our like private
Yeah.
college. And so this happens, and you're like, wow, what do you do? And I didn't go to a doctor. I didn't go and seek help. I just sat alone. And, you know, at that time, my husband he would do things here or there, but I kind of involved myself in work, and I just kept going. Like there was nothing else. And I think that's when, there was this little voice in him that said, I think we should try to have a baby. I think we're about year and a half married. Why don't you, and you're going to be 30. So do you want to have a baby? And I was like, okay, it's going to take about a year or so, right? I got
Mhm.
pregnant right away. I'm like, wait, it was supposed to be 1 year. Like, that's what I
Mhm.
read. He's like, oh, everybody's different.
Yeah.
So not only did I get pregnant, now I don't know what to do. And so I'm reading all these books, I'm reading all these things. I'm like, what is happening? So there was a little fear in me that I'm going to have a hard time getting pregnant. I don't know why. I think it was probably because of everything my mom went through with her pregnancies. So I had this thing like genetically something won't be
Right.
right. No, I got pregnant and now here I am. Like in about 40 weeks, there's going to be a life I have to take care of. So I internalized that stress fully. Um, at that time, my mom was still grieving. And so there was no, again, support for me to say, who do I reach out to? So, amongst friends, there was only one who was a gynecologist who was pregnant. And she had already had her baby. And she said, you're going to be okay. She gives me this gigantic list of
Mhm.
things. She's like, this is all that you need to buy for the baby. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all this? Really? One baby needs all this and I have to do this? Of course, we announced to everyone we're pregnant, and Vishnu at that time gets headhunted, and now he has this offer from Microsoft and says, we have to move. I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
I just had this friend circle, like my family and whatnot. And he says, are you okay with it? I said, yeah, I guess I don't see Florida as a forever home for me and the kids. I don't like the system here. So now not only am I pregnant, he's gone. He's starting to get settled here. I had to wrap up the whole house at like 5 months belly and whatnot, climbing up and no help. There is no help in this country.
Yeah.
You can't reach out and message and say, hey, come pack my boxes or come do this or come do that. And so Microsoft at that time had this system where they'll send the movers and everything, but you had to pack your boxes. They weren't going to take any
Oh, yeah.
responsibility for it.
Mhm.
I'm like, great. No, you can't take your plants. So now you have to find people to just give away your plants and your alcohol, everything, right? Now we've come and moved into this apartment. I think a few months later, I give birth. She comes 10 days early. Luckily, my mom is here and she's taking care of me and whatnot. But the struggle I had with her was my pregnancies were great. I had no cravings. I had nothing. I didn't have morning sickness. It was the most beautiful experience I could have ever had. And then comes Labor Day. She's starting to kick. I'm starting to be in pain. We're at the hospital. 22 hours later, here she is. But now 22 hours of me being exhausted.
Yeah.
It just hit my body just went through something. That stress and oh my God, I was like crying every day. After we took her home, I was miserable. My mom's like, you've had this new life in your life. Like, why are you crying? And I said, I'm not making enough milk. And now I'm stressed about that.
Mhm.
So she's like, well, this is what you should eat. This is what you should take. This should be your morning routine. I'm like, okay. So I did all of that.
Mhm.
Nothing's working. Every week we're going to a lactation specialist. And she's like, well, try this. Okay, now try this. Now put a nipple shield on. Now put this wire. pump like, formula through it. Let's stimulate it. Maybe she'll think there's milk in it and she'll stop. I'm like, what? This is insane. What am I doing? Why are we doing? The book didn't say that. The book
Yeah.
just said, put the baby on the breast and it's all good. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through a shock. And so yeah, that 7 weeks. Oh my God, I was miserable. I didn't talk to people. I was crying all the time. Vishnu took his first week off the paternity leave, but it was a new job. So he had stress from his family,
Right.
specifically his dad, saying that you can't take a week off. You got to go back to work. So the pressure on him, the pressure on me, we were like, okay, we're now in this life living together, but we're separated
Yeah.
somewhere. I'm trying to keep this baby alive. He's trying to keep the financials alive. And although there was no pressure from Microsoft, I have to say it was just the pressure that comes from family.
Yeah.
It's awful. Um, there was no question about how's Dipti doing. How is the baby? Is she okay? And yeah, it was all forgotten. The part that I think hurts you the most later on is that you don't know how to reach out to people and say, help me.
Yeah.
You're just trying to stay afloat. Okay? I used to touch Yana's nose. I'm like, is she breathing? I would just randomly wake up in the middle of the night and touch her nose. I'm like, is she breathing? She's sleeping. Okay, but there's so much underlying stress and anxiety that you have. It's awful.
And I feel like with you, you didn't really even get to process all of the things that were already going on in your life.
Yeah.
Like the loss of your dad,
Mm-hmm.
being pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
moving to a new place, then the stress of like, and you rightfully said it, that it's so difficult for us to seek help or to reach out because we are never taught how to do that, because
Yeah.
we are never given like alternatives of this might happen, and if that happens, here's what you can do. It's
Mm-hmm.
always like, okay, like you said, like how our parents used to take medicine and then move on. So it was almost like, okay, now you have a baby, move on,
Mm-hmm.
or you're in a new country, okay, move on. Like you're not given the space to process that. And then like like for me it was like I would feel this weight on my chest,
Oh, yeah.
like this physical thing, like there was something
Yeah.
stuck, and I wanted to just take it out, like like I didn't know how to take it out. Like I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this, what is this feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Like I like some of the things that you're saying, like, oh my god, this is exactly what I went through and exactly what I felt. And just in terms of like the going to the lactation consultant, it was such a new thing for me
Mm-hmm.
because nobody tells you about them. Like
Yeah.
your book never said that.
It's true. And the book never said how much pressure you're going to have to make sure that you're, giving your mother's milk to the baby. This is like, it was so stressful. But I have to say, my gynecologist was an angel. Like, he used these words and they will stick by me for the rest of my life. Even if my children have kids, I will instill these words in their minds. He said, I'm a doctor and I was formula fed. So what is your worry?
Hmm.
He says, tell me, what's your worry? I said, I don't want anything to happen to her.
Yeah.
That's my responsibility. I have to keep her alive. I cannot live with myself if something happens to her. He's like, she's not malnourished.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job. Just take a deep breath and don't worry about this pumping milk and all of it. Of course,
Yeah.
I took part of his advice. And then, seventh week, again, an angel nurse. She puts her little
Hmm.
finger in Yana's mouth and she's like letting Yana suck, right? She's like, let
Yeah.
me, let us. And she says that the your daughter's palate is too high. She's never going to be able to take breast milk. I'm like, why didn't the other six nurses tell me this? Why am I struggling for 7 weeks? And she's like, I'm sorry. She says, it's not you. It's the baby. The baby cannot, for the life of her, she just cannot take your breast milk directly. I burst out crying there in the clinic, and my mom's like, it's okay. Like, what are you gonna do? Nothing, right? Just give
Mhm.
her formula, pump, and you're fine. And then, yeah, I got 3 months later, I got pregnant again. That was another shocker to my body. I was like, what just is happening right now? And now the doctor says, Dipti, I know you're trying to pump still. I know you're trying to give the baby your milk, but guess what? Your hormones are going to change now that you're pregnant again and you're not going to make enough milk. In fact, your milk is going to stop completely. And I was like, oh, wow. There it was, another outburst. I'm like, what am I doing right now? Like, am I
Yeah,
failing as a mother?
I'm just thinking like how you manage through that.
I have friends who still ask me that. And then I tell them, I'm like, you know what? I could not change destiny. It was meant to be. My daughters were meant to come in this world together. My daughters were meant to teach me early on what it is to feel all of these issues with postpartum depression, and so that my purpose in life would be to create awareness
Yeah,
with this, right? Because only you can tell what your journey is.
yeah,
Only you can actually take all those experiences and now pass it on to the next generation and make it easier.
yeah,
And especially in this country, it is so hard to get resources and to get help and anything, like for every little thing you want word of mouth, you want
yeah,
preferences, you are afraid that you know something bad is going to happen. And for the first 2.5 years of Yana and Gia's life, I didn't do any date nights. I was afraid, like, to leave them with nannies. And finally, after they started getting a little bit older, there were certain websites that were taking accountability for background checks and
mhm,
whatnot, right?
mhm.
And then I was like, okay, so I can take the first step. And even then, I would check the cameras all the time at dinner. I was so distracted because I'm like, no, 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 it's my first time, my second time, my third time. It takes time
Of
for
course.
you to get used to leave your babies, and yeah, so then what happens in all of that? You kind of grow apart from the one other person that you started the life with, right? And so there's no, again, guidance to how to come back, and so you both are just growing apart. And yeah, you're in it now just for the sake of the kids. And even that gets tiring.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you say that because I don't know, like back in the day, like Indian movies, or even when you like speak to like relatives and stuff, and there are newlyweds, who are having problems in their marriage, and the solution is always to have a baby.
Oh my God, I don't know how that's a solution. It's
So,
the
I
worst.
remember like asking somebody, like, how is that a solution? Like, when there's so much of stress between two
Whew,
people,
yeah,
how is the baby going to solve that? And so, they would say that, well, the baby is a symbol of love and it reminds you of why you were together. And I would always be like, but if you're fighting, how is that a symbol of love? Like,
yeah,
isn't it easier for the child to be with, like, parents who are not together but happy in their own lives
yeah,
versus constantly seeing their parents like fight?
yeah.
And how is that healthy for the child? And then I think they said, well, that's the whole point. Like, you won't fight because the child is there and you have to. So again, like to your point, I think it was almost like suppressing everything
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of the kids, because you want
Hmm.
to show them that you're strong, and that you're there for them, and like nothing's going to break this family. But that can also take a toll, like especially for you. I think it really took a toll on your mental health.
Oh, 100%. And I I think somewhere deep down, I just wanted to keep the kids alive. That was the stress I had, whether it was their eating, whether it was their milk intake, anything, right? Um, the added factor to that was money. It's like we just moved to Seattle. It's expensive here. And I'm talking 2010. I
Mm.
mean, it's absurd now, but 2010, I was like, okay, I need to get back to work. And I didn't even take a full 3 month leave that now, moms are getting 6 months, I believe. I went back to work seventh week after giving birth. And I was working East Coast hours. So I had to wake up at 5:30, pump milk, feed the baby, change the diaper, do all of that. 5:45, she would go back to sleep. I would log on to my work and I would work till lunch, take a break, do the whole feeding process again, put her back to nap, and work again. So I had to put 8 hours from that morning. So I think my body was just exhausted, right? It was like, I'm done. You need to stop this. And I
Yeah.
didn't. I kept going
Do
because
you
again,
like a distraction for you, or like where
no,
was
it
your
was
mind at?
it was the whole thing. Like they asked me to come back and I said, okay, I don't want to lose my job. I want to keep a job. And so that's like I went, I mean, I think she came in September. I started what 7 weeks, I would say October-ish end. And then by December I was pregnant again. I announced this news to my my boss and my supervisor and they're like, "What?" They were all like, "Are you okay?"
Didn't you
I'm
just
like,
have a baby yesterday?
"Yes." They're like, "Did you just have Yana?" I'm like, "I don't know what happened." They're like, "We know. It's okay. We don't want you to tell us what happened. We know what happened." I'm like, "Oh God." And then in April, I think that department was doing some reorgs and they no longer wanted someone remote. And so I was like, this is another way of me saying, you know what? I think this is universe saying, just relax. There's another baby coming. But then I gave birth to her, and yeah, I became a stay-at-home mom for 2.5 years. I just couldn't even get myself to go interview again. I was like, I want to work. I want to work. I just want to do this, but I don't trust people to take care of my kids. And my mom couldn't, she wasn't living with me. And so it was hard. Like
Yeah.
everything, all in all, I would say that lack of resources and lack of awareness of where I should go seek help or where I should kind of gather people to kind of become my village of people that can help
Yeah.
me with children. I would say fast forward now, Yana is 13, Gia is 12. I have so much knowledge about what is right and what is wrong and where to tap into things and the amount of Facebook groups that started and the community just all the moms probably struggle the same way
Yeah.
and they all just gathered their knowledge and just shoved it into this one group and said, here, this is everything and anything you want to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And there was a group I joined, by the way. I don't know if you were in it. I think I sent you this invitation, Brown Mommies Unite.
Yes. Yes, you
Oh
did.
my God, that was an awesome group that was started by a friend of mine. And what a thoughtful initiative that was,
Yeah.
right? She powered on with all of these resources and moms, and people were starting to make products for making
Oh yeah,
milk, and
yeah, yeah.
it was amazing.
I mean, I think that is what was missing when we had our
Oh,
days,
yes.
right? It was like
Mm-hmm.
nobody spoke about any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I just want this feeling to disappear because it exhausts you. It
Yeah.
exhausts you to the point of you. just don't know what to do with this life that's in front of you because you're just too tired to do anything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like that physical exhaustion, right? I mean, there is that too because you're not sleeping at night.
Yeah.
You're doing everything yourself because, like Zamir had to work, and I was not working at that time when I had Zion, I remember. Uh, but and then I got a job when he was about 5 or 6 months old. And for me, putting him in a daycare was like, I was so scared. I
Mm-hmm.
was terrified. And I remember even going for my interview, I was like, my mind is not here. It's with my son. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if he's crying. I don't know if he needs me. Like, there was all of these thoughts. And I remember just being exhausted by it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody tells you that A, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here are all the resources that you have or you can use. I mean, even then, like finding somebody was like, we didn't have care.com or we didn't have any of
Nothing.
it was all
Yeah.
like somebody's friend used a nanny that, might be
That's true.
available. And I'm like, okay, I mean, what else can you do?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for me, what made it all the more worse was I was seeing my cousins have kids in Dubai and I was seeing them being surrounded by
Easy. Mm. Yeah.
just like you said, if there was groups like Brown Mommies Unite before, just having that place to like a safe space where you can be
Mm-hmm.
so vulnerable and you can say things like, I don't like my baby today. I
It's true.
don't.
No one's judging you there. There is just no stopping. Even once they grow up, you are going to just constantly worry about where they are, who
Yeah.
they are with, are they in the right company, are they in a safe space? But I think when you look back, our parents had that same experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, I came alone.
Yeah.
There
You
was
did?
nobody. Yeah, I
Ex-
came alone, right? So it was like for me, it was just. I mean, what must be going through my dad and my mom's head right now? That she's left Dubai, where she was so sheltered, so pampered, and she's gone to a country we know no one there. It's like,
Yeah.
why would she do this to herself? And I also don't know why I'd do this to myself, but I did.
Yeah.
And today I feel like it's just made me stronger. And I think we
Yeah.
just have to have that faith in our kids and our upbringing and our value system that we instill in them. That you know what, they'll be okay.
So how did you get from where you were with, and I don't even want to think of just that mental trauma that you were going through, right? Like
Hmm.
all of that to where you are today. Like what was that? How did it, what happened?
I think your children give you strength. That's it. I think you keep going for the sake of your children. And I have to say, knock on wood, I'm very strong mentally. There's something in me that I'm gifted and with that mental strength that no matter the road that I have been on and the bumps that I have faced, the part that keeps me going is that I want to be an example to my kids that there's nothing in life that you cannot achieve. There's nothing in life that you cannot do, and there's nothing in life you cannot overcome. So keep at it, talk about it, don't suppress it. And
Yeah.
I tell them suppression is equal to depression. So don't suppress it. And I think that's one other part I think is naturally comes to me is that I love talking to people. That's just one way I release all of my stressors, and I'm happy that somebody's sharing their experiences with me and I share my experiences with
Yeah.
them, and we are like at the end of the conversation we're like, this was so nice. That
Yeah.
was so nice to talk to you. And I think that's why I'm taking the route I'm taking today is that all people want is someone to listen to. All people want is someone who they can relate to, and you can share that journey and say it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. And you have to give each other that strength because why are we here? I mean, you
Yeah.
have to connect on that human level. You have to connect with your experiences and just give a hug, like I wish when I was so depressed and so like, on edge and so stressed out, I would just get a hug. That's it. I mean, that would have solved a lot of my problems. Like
Yeah.
someone to just hold you and say, it's okay. This is
It's
how it is.
normal.
Yeah. And your mom doesn't hug you. Your mom is like,
Yeah. They
what?
like they just kind of stiffen up.
It's like, what? Mom, no, maybe
Yeah,
not.
I think
Yeah.
they were just not, they were not raised in a way to show physical affection,
Yes.
words of endearment. They
Yeah.
showed us their love by staying up at night when we would go out, or
Yeah.
packing food for us when you're traveling.
Yeah.
It was all in ways that now that I look back on it, I'm like, man, I was so blind to that.
That's so true. That is so
No,
true.
I
No,
was
but
so blind
yeah.
to that.
No, I mean, now, like, okay, do your kids ask for hug?
Yeah, no, of course. They ask for hugs. I give hugs. We are in this whole, I love you too phase. And I can sense like when my parents are here and when my son goes up to my dad and goes, I love you. And my dad is like, haha, I love you too. Yes. Okay, what's for breakfast?
It becomes awkward for them, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
But
my mom is like, now I tell her, I said, when they're saying, love you, Nani, say it back.
yeah.
Why aren't you saying it back? And now she does.
Yeah.
And she's like, even I don't know why I'm not saying it back, but okay,
Yeah.
I'll say it.
They show it in such different ways.
Yes,
That is like, you and my mom like would say, you know what, it's nice to say I love you, but it's also nice to show someone that you love them.
yeah, that's very sweet.
Like
Yeah,
how do you, I mean, I think to your point when you said like the route that you're in now, and which I think is so freaking inspirational, and we need so many more people doing this.
yeah.
Because one of the things I just read is your lived experience is what makes you um stronger, and I wouldn't say more qualified, but I think it makes it so much more easier for the other person to like to
Mm-hmm,
resonate,
mm-hmm,
because you have gone through those emotions.
mm-hmm,
It's not just textbook solutions anymore. It's like, hey, this is what worked for me. I know what you're feeling. And what everybody wants to realize is it's validated. You
mm-hmm.
want to know that there are others just like you who've gone through that journey just like you, and they have seen the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when you're feeling so lost and you don't know if there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you don't know, like, is this it? Is this my life? Is it over for me? Am I going to constantly feel like this for the rest of my life? And I think, like you said, like your kids give you that purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want my kids to see a mom who's so depressed and not able to bring her best and take care of them. Like, you're responsible for another life. Whatever said and done, you're responsible for another
Yeah,
life.
yeah. Like, kudos to you. Again, you have that mental strength
So
that
that's,
you looked at it so differently, right? You looked at it, putting your children in mind, saying, I'm going to make this different.
yeah,
There's not many out there that have that strength. So
yeah,
whatever you go through, but there's some voice inside of you that says, wake up, get going. You have a purpose in life. Do it. Just do it. You
yeah,
got this. Take small steps. And now the journey you and I spoke before we did this, but the journey I'm taking, it tells you have a goal, but to get to that goal, don't just jump.
yeah,
Take the small steps. It's so important that we unwire our brain to
yes,
think that we are going to run towards a goal versus take small walking steps.
yeah,
And so that is what I remind myself. Like, whatever tomorrow I go through, I think I'm going to be fine because I have to remember at the end of the day what my purpose is, why I'm here, everything I have, overcome, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. And I need to be there for my children's future, and I need to be there for whatever life throws at them because, again, I've been there. So I can absolutely be, if nothing else, I can be there to give them a hug.
Yeah,
And that's it.
absolutely. I think that's, again, I think that is like so inspiring that how you've taken your experiences and on this journey to be a resource for others,
Hmm.
because that is what's missing. You don't know that there is a resource.
Yes, I agree.
You just like it's
Yeah.
it's it's right there, but you don't
Hmm.
know. And like I was like, oh my god, why didn't I talk to my friends? Because now that I have, like, I still say that you never overcome depression. You learn to manage it, and you
Hmm.
learn to give it a safe space, and you learn to go beyond that, right?
Hmm.
Because there are always triggers in life. um, but I wish that at that point in time when I was at my lowest, I wish I had that safe space, and I wish I was strong enough to be vocal about it and say, this, guys, I need help. Now I'm able to say it because I'm in a place where I've learned to manage it, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I've gone through that journey where I hear a lot of people like yourself who are like, oh, I went through that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, you did? Well, what did you do? Because I'm sure
Hmm.
there are so many people out there who are at that crossroads right now. So at
Yeah,
least let's use our collective shared experience to make things better for the
absolutely.
next generation or the next wave of children. Like, even our children can be such great examples
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
for not just for ourselves but for like other kids too, right?
Yeah.
Because what you teach at home and what you impart at home is what they're taking to school.
Yes.
uh,
100%. 100%.
so I know we're short on time, but I'd love to kind of just wrap up with how you found your calling, and kind of where you are in that journey and how it has changed your life, for the better. Because I want everybody to know, like, there is hope out there.
Um, One is you go through what you go through, right? So what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yep.
Second is that inspiration we talk about. Like, who's inspiring me? It's my kids. It's their future. It's the future generations I worry about.
Yep.
And and the journey I'm taking today is all about making sure that I create that awareness that even if a small percentage of this population says, I heard that, I feel it, and now I'm going to implement it, I've done some part of my purpose is done, right? I've instilled that love and hope in people that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's thanks to the family away from family I have here. My I have a group of empowered women. They are amazing. And all of them came to my rescue when I was in the last like 2 years of being in the worst situation I could ever be. They all gathered their strength and came to me and said, you are going to be okay. We are here. Just reach out. And so I think if I can create that community for the future generations,
Yeah.
it's going to be it's going to be such a wonderful, I think, life that we can look towards, right? And so we'll be at ease that our children
Yeah.
have this support system that even if they want to be like, I'm raising two daughters, so even if they want to be working women, I never want them to feel like they're lacking resources or support
Yeah.
or a system where they can just reach out and say, I need help, mom.
Yeah.
Where can I go?
Yeah.
Here's where you can go. Don't spend hours on the internet freaking out about not finding the right
Yeah.
caregiver or anything, understanding whether your child needs what type of supplements to so you can make more milk. We have it for you. Try it. I think if we created that forum, that sort of centers, online center, then that would be amazing.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, like, just in your journey, um, as you're getting into coaching, right? The biggest gift you can give women and children and everybody else is the tools to be independent and resourceful.
Yes.
And how do you do that, right? How do you build that framework for them? How do
Mm-hmm.
you become more successful? How do you make them like strong women?
Mm-hmm.
um and I think that is like such an inspiring journey you're on. Obviously I'm going to keep following you. I'm going to kind of be your cheerleader from the side, from the
Oh, thank
side,
you.
for sure, because again I think we need more people who are open to share their journey
Mm-hmm.
and talk about how what helped them. It is so
Mm-hmm.
so important. And
I think there is a shame in that, and I don't know why. Like I, I'm very vocal about it. I have no qualms. I even talk to my kids about it. That I went through what I went through because I was depressed. I mean, why am I hiding this, right? I'm not going to hide this. And the other thing is I never went to a doctor. Like I never seeked help. And that is something I still question till today. And I think I understood the word a little bit later in life.
hmm,
What was postpartum, right? Like I didn't even know the clear definition of it, which is why I think you're doing such a fantastic job of creating this awareness. You're doing such an amazing job of constantly, I see your posts, and I love it that you are bringing all of this to everyone's attention. It's out there. It's just needs to be out there more. Like
yeah.
let's get the word out. Let's spread as much as we can. Let's start building this foundation sort of where we are going towards the right purpose and we're going towards the right mindset of what it is that we are trying to change.
Yeah.
By just talking about it, not doing anything about it, it's just talking.
Hmm.
It's not changing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
We got
right.
to take action, and
100%. 100%. I feel like I'll have you back here again, um, in a
happy
few
to.
months, and would love to kind of talk about, maybe at that time, like I'm sure you'd have had a lot more experience, with your
Hmm.
journey. And
Hmm.
then, we could probably even like talk about what happens next.
Yes, yes,
What
100%.
happens next? Like, you have the resources, you have the tools. How do you use them?
Hmm.
And so, because it's, in closing, I'll say, I remember when I finally started telling people that I went through postpartum depression. I
Hmm.
had depression and anxiety before that. They'll say, well, why didn't you talk to somebody? You see that everywhere, you know,
Hmm.
there are ads. Everything is there. So why didn't you talk to somebody? And I think you and I went through this. Like you said, to this day, you didn't know why you didn't seek help,
Hmm.
because we don't know how to.
Yeah, we don't. It's true. We don't know how to.
Don't know. You're
Yeah,
like your mind and your body are like two separate people pulling you in two different directions,
yeah,
and you don't know. So I would love to have a conversation with you, like maybe the
sure.
next time, on how do you seek help?
Hmm.
What
Yeah,
works? What doesn't
yeah,
work? It's okay to be vulnerable and all of those things. But thank you, Deepti, so much for your time. I
yeah.
cannot tell you how much it means to me that
Oh,
you shared your story. And
absolutely. I'm happy to. This is one way we come together and we start changing the world, the mindset, and the journeys.
totally, totally. Well,
Mhm.
again, thank you so much.